Hello and welcome to Viper Sports Network's coverage of the 2019 Marsh One Day Cup. You're currently listening to our massive preview show where we will be talking all things Australian domestic cricket ahead of a revamped and rebranded One Day tournament which kicks off this Saturday. I'm your host James and I am back after we took a bit of a hiatus last season. Today we're going to be discussing the all-new Marsh One Day Cup, always a highlight on the Australian cricket calendar. We've got all the teams, all the players, and we're going to be discussing all of them today. So without further ado, we're going to take a closer look at the teams and discuss the squads, highlight key players and make our predictions as to where they will finish this season. We will also be discussing this season's Fantasy League and how you, the viewers, can get involved. So sit back and enjoy. This is going to be a cracking show. Previously, or at least when we did our preview show back in 2017, we went through the teams in alphabetical order. This year, however, we are going to start with Queensland and Western Australia. You'll find out why in just a second. And that's because Queensland are yet to announce their squad for this year's tournament, so we can't tell you that. What we can tell you is that their opening two matches this year will be at home at Allan Border Field, the first of which is against New South Wales on the 22nd of September. We can also tell you that star batsman Chris Lynn won't don the maroon this season, after choosing instead to keep his options open for possible overseas T20 stints. Lynn was the tournament's leading run scorer in 2018, hammering 452 runs from 7 matches, which included 200s and 350s. How much will Queensland miss him this season? A lot. A lot is the answer to that question. We also don't want to speculate too much, but we have heard a whisper that perhaps Joe Burns is taking some time off for family reasons, so it remains to be seen whether he will take the field or not for Queensland. And based on the other squads released, we also believe that Ashes squad members Usman Khawaja, Marsh Labuschagne and Michael Neser will be unavailable, certainly for at least the first part of the tournament. This leaves some gaping holes in the Queensland 11 which will need to be filled. It is pretty likely though that James Pearson will captain the side again this year. Like Queensland, Western Australia are yet to announce their squad for this year. Michael Klinger announced his retirement from the Big Bash League at the end of last season, having previously retired from first-class cricket. We take this to mean that he will not be playing for Western Australia this season. However, this does not mean that they are lacking anything in the batting stocks. Western Australia do have players such as Jonathan Wells, Marcus Stoinis, Ashton Turner and Darcy Short, who of course made that 257 last year against Queensland, as well as Shaun Marsh most likely, although Marsh does have a finger injury, so they are sweating on his availability this season. Add to that bowlers such as Ashen Agar, Jason Berendorf, Nathan Coulter-Nile, Andrew Tye and Jai Richardson, and Western Australia will have themselves a pretty decent starting 11. Mitchell Marsh is currently Western Australia's captain, so it's likely he will miss the early matches as well, since he is part of the Ashes squad. And the same goes for Cameron Bancroft, after he made just 44 runs at an average of 11 in the first 2 Ashes tests. Western Australia kicks off their campaign against Victoria on Saturday at home in the opening match of the Marsh One Day Cup. The squad for this year for New South Wales is as follows: Sean Abbott, Nick Burtis, Harry Conway, Jack Edwards, Mickey Edwards, Matthew Gilkes, Liam Hatcher, Moises Enriquez, Daniel Hughes, Nathan McAndrew, Arjun Nair, Peter Neville, Curtis Patterson and Daniel Sams. They will be without all 6 of their Ashes stars, including David Warner and Steve Smith, who could yet feature later in the tournament, with the availability of bowlers Pat Cummins, Mitchell Starc, Josh Hazlewood and Nathan Lyon yet to be determined. This means that players such as Nick Burtis, Matthew Gilkes, Liam Hatcher and Nathan McAndrew are in line to make their debut for New South Wales. McAndrew and Gilkes each played for the Sydney Thunder during the BBL last season, with Gilkes making a 50 on debut against the Perth Scorchers. Fellow Thunder player Daniel Sams was also the team's leading wicket taker, with 15 wickets at a strike rate of 14.4. In a series of intra-squad matches in recent days, Nick Burtis hit successive 50s, while Sam smacked 82 from 68 balls. He also backed it up with the ball as Sean Abbott and Arjun Nair each recorded 4-wicket hauls. Daniel Hughes hit 87 at the top of the order. However, I believe the key player for New South Wales this season will be Curtis Patterson. Patterson scored 114 not out against Sri Lanka back in February, and he was unlucky to miss out on being selected for the Ashes. He, along with Moises Henriques, will have to form the backbone of an inexperienced New South Wales batting order this year. New South Wales will face Queensland at Allan Border Field on the 22nd before meeting South Australia the following Thursday. Speaking of, South Australia's squad this year is as follows: Wes Agar, Alex Carey, Tom Cooper, Callum Ferguson, Jake Lehman, Joe Manny, Harry Nilsson, Lloyd Pope, Luke Robbins, Alex Ross, Kane Richardson, Cameron Valente, Jake Weatherald, and Adam Zampa. South Australia will be chasing their first piece of silverware in 8 years. However, they will be without skipper Travis Head for the opening 2 matches, with Jake Lehman set to captain the side in his absence. The team spent a week on Queensland's Sunshine Coast last month, where their understrength side was easily defeated twice by the hosts in 2 50-over matches. Jake Weatherald was the only Redbacks batsman to pass 50, while new recruit Wes Agar and fast bowler David Grant each recorded 3-wicket hauls. These two, along with young gun Luke Robbins, will be looked at closely, with both Chad Sayers and Daniel Worrell out with back injuries. However, the South Australians will have help with Australian World Cup squad members Kane Richardson and Adam Zampa named in the Redback squad. Richardson was also the leading BBL wicket taker last season with 24 wickets at a strike rate of 13.7. I believe he will be the key player for the Redbacks this season. Wicketkeeper Alex Carey will also feature this season after spending the winter in the UK playing for Sussex. South Australia begins their campaign against Queensland at Allan Border Field on the 24th. The squad this year for Tasmania is as follows: George Bailey, Jackson Bird, Alex Doolan, Jake Duran, Nathan Ellis, James Faulkner, Jared Freeman, Caleb Jewell, Ben McDermott, Riley Meredith, Alex Pycroft, Gurinder Sandhu, Jordan Silk, and Bo Webster. The Tigers' 14-man squad features all-rounder James Faulkner, who has not played for Tasmania in almost 2 years. Faulkner failed to make an impact with the bat during last season's BBL, scoring just 38 runs in 6 innings. However, he found success as the Hobart Hurricanes' opening bowler, taking 18 wickets at a strike rate of 15.6. The squad also features Hurricanes star Ben McDermott, who scored 376 runs in last season's BBL and was also player of the series in the JLT Cup. Riley Meredith was also equally impressive, taking 16 wickets at a strike rate of 18.4. Not only that, but former Test players George Bailey and Jackson Bird are set to play for the Tigers again this season. Bailey hurt his shoulder during the Hobart Hurricanes semi-final loss to the Melbourne Stars earlier this year. While he is fit enough to bat, Bailey is yet to regain the power in his throwing arm. Coach Adam Griffith isn't too worried though, saying that he has seen the veteran throw just as well with his non-preferred left hand on numerous occasions. Tasmania will be without Test stars Tim Payne and Matthew Wade for their opening 2 matches, with Jordan Silk set to captain the side in their absence. I believe that Jordan Silk will be the key player for the Tigers this season. He scored 280 runs at an average of 31.1 for the Sydney Sixers in last season's BBL, including 67 not out against the Perth Scorchers in December. Tasmania will begin their season against Victoria at the Wacker on the 23rd of September. Victoria's squad this year is as follows: Scott Boland, Jackson Coleman, Travis Dean, Andrew Feckerty, Aaron Finch, Peter Hanscom, Sam Harper, Mackenzie Harvey, John Holland, Nick Manson, Glenn Maxwell, Will Pukowski, Matthew Short, Will Sutherland, and Chris Tremaine. This is the squad set to defend the One Day Cup title after the Vics defeated the Tasmanians in last year's final by 110 runs. Australian World Cup players Peter Hanscom, Aaron Finch and Glenn Maxwell headline a Victorian squad that looks as strong as ever. Nick Manninson will also feature prominently in a side that includes young guns Will Pukowski and Will Sutherland. Pukowski has already amassed 939 first-class runs at an average of 42.6 and almost made his Test debut against Sri Lanka back in January. Meanwhile, Sutherland took 5 for 45 against Queensland in last season's opening match. The Vics will be without Ashes players Marcus Harris, Peter Siddle and James Pattinson. In their absence, the Victorians will look to young players like Sam Harper and Mackenzie Harvey. Both Harper and Harvey were part of the Melbourne Renegades squad that won last season's BBL. Wicketkeeper Harper scored 341 runs at an average of 22.7, while left-hander Harvey also impressed across the tournament. These two will both be key players for Victoria this season. The defending champions kick off their title defence against Western Australia on Saturday at the Wacker Ground in the opening match of the 2019 Marsh One Day Cup. So predictions for this season's One Day Cup. It's definitely going to be interesting this season with the revamped competition. Instead of a single block of matches being played at the beginning of the season, this year's tournament will span more than 2 months from September 21st to November 26th, with a break in the middle for the Marsh Sheffield Shield. Despite this, my pick to win the tournament this year is definitely Victoria. Victoria's squad this year looks strong with players like Hanscom, Finch, Maxwell and Madison, as well as young guns like Pekovsky, Harper and Harvey filling out the batting lineup. The majority of their players were also part of the Melbourne Renegades and Melbourne Stars squads that faced off in last season's BBL final. Let's not forget about that. So who do I believe is going to be in the final with them? Well, the new finals format certainly added some spice last year. Queensland were rock bottom last year after only winning one match, but they defeated third place South Australia to reach the semi-finals. Moreover, Western Australia were undefeated before they lost to fourth place Victoria in the second semi-final. There can be no doubt that this season will be just as close. Viper Sports Network's Fantasy League is back this season. It's back. It's bigger and better than ever before, because hopefully this year we can at least stick to it. Entering is easy. Simply comment your starting 11 plus 2 subs down below. No rules or restrictions on which players you can or can't use. If you want to use the entire New South Wales or Queensland lineup, you can. That's fine. Nothing against that. But you will not gain any points from players who aren't in their respective team's starting 11. Remember to nominate a captain, vice-captain and wicket-keeper, because there are bonus points on offer for them. We will make a separate podcast closer to the tournament start date, explaining the rules for the Fantasy League in full. And hopefully by then Queensland and Western Australia will have announced squads too, so I can reveal my Fantasy 11. So stay tuned for that. Thank you for listening if you've listened for this long. Get your fantasy team in down below and remember to tune in to watch Western Australia take on defending champs Victoria this Saturday. Matches can be watched via Fox Sports, KO or the Cricket Australia live app. We'll be doing match previews and reviews, plus a halftime show, so make sure you stay tuned right here on Viper Sports Network for more of that. In the meantime, goodbye. You're listening to Viper Sports Network. For all the latest news and updates from the 2019 Marsh One Day Cup, stay tuned to Viper Sports Network.